you very much for introducing me. I'm really happy to be here and returning the favor when you spoke at UCL last semester in one of my classes, which was great. So I'll try to do a good job myself. I'll talk about resilience, but really also about vulnerability and how they might be connected. Nenad already mentioned there's mainly three things where I encountered, difficult. Yeah, a difficult situation at Skrill, of course, then later on as managing a football club, a professional football club, top 36 in Germany, and then at UCL, where I'm actually now dealing with students. So what is resilience, and what is it that we used to understand when we talk about resilience? They told me back in 2007 I should be healthy physically. That means doing workout. I wasn't vulnerable enough for yoga yet, but that helps. And a lot of sleep, but then of course every founder knows that you just can't sleep because you have all these ideas and then you have all these visions about your big house in Saint-Tropez in 30 years. Mental health, should do coaching and therapy. Yes, I'm sure that helps, but it's really external, right? You bring in external people. They don't really know what your company is about. And then a work-life balance, like not working too hard and going to the theater. But then again, I just really, why would I go to the theater when I was 32 years old building a company? So I'm sure that gets you somewhere. But what happens is that, even the very healthy founders who are very resilient and who also have a great run in the beginning. So they found a company very successfully. They find a very good VC like Nenad, for example, and then they grow, and then at a certain point things get stuck. And that is what people call the founder syndrome. That happens in many cases. That was developed by a professor or a team at Oxford very recently, just because the issues were so actual. And what is it? What is that trap? You are a founder, you think you're unbeatable, you think you know everything best, you think nobody else knows it better, especially not your investors or other people in your company. So what is the founder syndrome and what can it lead to? At Oxford, they defined the founder syndrome as, you can read it yourself, a malady that affects founders who are primarily driven by the need to control, no clear delegation, no succession planning, they know everything better, and they feel that, here it is, and they feel, that what they say is what is true, they don't really work in teams and so on. And, if you break it down, it's an organization's image that is strongly identified with one founder. Just look at the Sam Altman case, for example, very recently. High levels of micromanagement, not much delegation, high levels of turnover in the staff, and then really only the founder's view that matters. And according to that research that they've done, the founder syndrome happens late. The company is already successful. The company has already gained, significant funding. And at that point, there's really a lot to lose for everybody involved. That is a point where the research shows that is one of the biggest issues for successful companies, that at some point not break down, but become less successful, don't grow as fast anymore, etc. If you look at the risk of being an entrepreneur that you all know, the financial risk, the reputational risk, etc., then obviously it's very understandable that these founders are so nitty-gritty, that they stay very close, that they don't like to delegate, etc. So then, is there a different way, and what could be the basis for that? We actually came to that when I was when Marty Nutt was holding a guest lecture with me He's a guy I ran Skrill with later on. He then managed Facebook in Europe and EMA and then WeWork and so on. We had this workshop in my class at UCL in London because we just couldn't identify with the founder syndrome. Yes, we also had some bad things going on and there were a lot of issues and troubles, but not that. And so we sat together and we thought about, what was it that we might have done different? Is there any different way in managing a company when it's already successful and you want to keep the growth, you want to keep the momentum? And we defined it later on as, we said it's probably a vulnerability, and what is that? That means that you really honestly, as a CEO, as a founder, you honestly reflect on the situation of your business, on your own performance, on your own character. You then come to a conclusion about that, and you don't keep it for yourself, but you, of course, need to share it with certain people. Not with everybody, it doesn't mean going into the office and saying, I've got such a headache today, can somebody help me? That's not that, but, real issues, and then sharing them and drawing consequences. And, what we said and what we basically agreed upon with the class and with Martin was that vulnerability could be one way that actually leads to resilience, that helps being resilient, not, apart from your physical health and everything I talked about, your exercise and so on. And I want to show you 3 examples now that share 3 experiences that I had on, on how that turned out. So one was a key moment in my career. We had built Skrill from 0 to 100 million in valuation. We brought InvestCorp in as a 51% shareholder, and there I was, I was really proud of myself. I thought I'm unbeatable. I thought, InvestCorp, they, made Gucci a big brand again, so, that's it. And then suddenly, when I sat across Hazem and his team, the fierce guys from InvestCorp in that boardroom in Mayfair, quite scary with a carpet that is that high. And I thought, wait a minute. So, and then they said, everything changes now, the reporting changes, more growth, you need to go to the US and so on. And I came home and I said, no, I don't feel comfortable with this. And I thought, what can I do? And I thought, if I don't do anything, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to be exhausted, I'm going to be overwhelmed. I had all that risk to manage because obviously we were in a high-risk environment as a financial services company that was also active in online gaming and so on. So I went to my boss at InvestCorp and said, listen, I don't think I can do that all on my own. And that was just right after he had invested, after I told him all the nice stuff on the slides in the pitch. And I said, I think I need somebody. I have somebody in mind. His name is Nenad. And you know what? We should try a co-CEO thing. Not because I wanted to be a co-CEO, but because Martin didn't want to be anything else if he would have come in. So it was a situation. And he agreed to that. And, I'd really exposed myself, and I thought it's really risky towards InvestCorp right after they'd invested. But he agreed to that, and it was an amazing decision for me and for the company and for everybody else, because I suddenly had somebody on the same level as I had somebody I could share my, the risks and my, the weight on my shoulders and obviously the growth expectations with, and we just clicked, and the outcome of it was that I became much more resilient because I felt much better in my business. The risk of being, held up in the US for online gambling, illegal online gaming, just became much less because we shared it and we found a way to navigate around it and so on. The side effect was that InvestCorp really, until today, by the way, held it up that I was so honest to them in the beginning, and it just created a lot of trust between me and them. The other example was a couple of years later. So we built Skrill from 100 million, and then we wanted to IPO at, I don't know, 600-700 million in around 2012. And it didn't work out. So, you know, the ones of you who've tried an IPO, it's just a nightmare, you know? You don't know where you are anymore, you fly around the world, you say the same things all the time for weeks, and then your book builds up, and then it collapses completely, you're devastated. And the immediate reaction of Martin and myself was obviously to blame it on the market. And that's what we told the press as well. But then, you know, right after it failed, we went back to our old friends from CVC and from Advent and from EQT, and they said, Nick, it's great to meet you again. I've seen you now for the third time. You know, I really like you. You've got a new computer back here. But you always come, like every other year you come by, and you know what? It's the same story. It's got nothing to do with you, but, you know. And so we could have just carried on, Martin and I, but we said, no, they really gave us a message here. You know, we had a trade sale in 2007. We tried a trade sale in 2009. We tried an IPO in 2011. We spoke to almost, yes, there were institutional and private investors, but we spoke basically to the same people all the time. They just didn't want to see us anymore, and they didn't want to hear the story anymore. So we went to InvestCorp and said, you know what, Hazem, to be honest, we think we are great managers, and look where we brought the business, but maybe not anymore. And so again, you know, weeks of consultation with the shareholders and us and the board and so on, and we scrapped it. Martin and I, we stepped down. He went on to Facebook. I went on to become an active executive board member. We brought in an external CEO back then from, forgot the company, another fintech company. And we created a new story because the investors had also told us, you know, the story needs to be renewed now. We bought PaySafeCard. The business became much bigger, and that new CEO sold our business for 1.2 billion a year later. And again, that situation was very hard for us, right? Because we basically thought, our gut feel told us, we should actually give up everything we've built here and give it to somebody else, although we built a great business. And yes, but we didn't sell it. We didn't sell it successfully. And, you know, we decided to expose ourselves in that way. And again, in the end, you know, the right decision for everybody. The last one is, and that's obviously my passion. When, you know, while Martin went around the world, I went back home in die Pfalz, I don't know, Weißweinschorle, Helmut Kohl, these kind of people, you know, that's my home. And I went to manage Kaiserslautern as a chairman, my football club. And again, you know, the pressure was never as high as when I was sitting in a game on my designated seat, 50,000 people in the stadium, and it's sold out every time. And you just feel and you think they all look at you, which they don't. But, you know, they look at the players when they score a goal, and then, yes, they do look at me when we get a goal or we lose, but it's not 50,000, it's more 50 or 60, like my immediate neighbors. But anyways, I had that thing that in a 90 minutes match, I was sitting on my seat number 1, as I said, like 30 meters off the pitch, you know, so just behind these guys there. And 10 minutes before the game ended, every single time, no matter what the score was, I couldn't breathe anymore. My heart went crazy. I thought I would collapse. This is how nervous I was and how much pressure I felt. And I really didn't know what to do. You know, I couldn't run away. So I decided one day to go see the paramedics. So I was actually going 10 meters down in the stadium, sitting behind the paramedics, and they said, "Oh, boss, what are you doing here? You know, that's very volksnah. That's very kind of you." I said, "No, that's not volksnah. I'm just really scared. I'm dying." And they could have taken it as a joke, or they couldn't have taken it serious. I didn't really know. I left it at that. But one of the guys then, after the game, he came to me and said, "Mr. Riesenkampff, I know how you feel. The coaches tell me the same thing, the managers. It's an enormous stress. You know what? From now on, I'm going to go up into the VIP lounge and I'll sit right behind you. I said, would you really do that? He said, yes, and he did that. And it was a completely different ball game. I could watch every match. I just felt, if I fall back, I'm going to fall into his eyes, and he knows how to reanimate me. And the quality completely changed. I could watch the games. I wasn't scared anymore. You know, this was not a conscious decision to expose myself in that moment, but it worked in the same way. And it made me, as a manager of a football team, much more resilient, and, you know, success didn't come still, as the ones who know about football know, but it was fun at least, and it was great. And these are my 3 examples. So to wrap it up, our pitch, or my pitch to you is, if your founders, CEOs, whatever, if you want them more resilient, you know, have them work on their own vulnerability. And not only did it strengthen my resilience every single time, as a co-CEO later on after the IPO, and then on the football pitch. But I felt much better, so it helped my mental health. You know, being honest, exposing myself, not playing a game towards my closest allies, associates, and stakeholders, just made me feel much better. So it contributed to my mental health. In the team, in the company, it created, you know, an authenticity. You know what I want to say? So we came across as really honest, because of course, you know, we didn't tell all the details to the team, but they somehow felt it. It created and strengthened our leadership. It strengthened and created a company culture, and we earned a lot of respect for it. And yeah, that's my 5 cents. Thank you.